Welcome to Money Making Sense, the show that talks about all things money. And we are still doing our 10 tax tip series. It's our annual tax tip series. Joining me today is Mike Criddle with Eide Bailey. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, what are you going to educate everybody about on their taxes?
Well, I was going to talk about identity theft since it's such a prevalent topic these days.
And you are here to steal my identity. I know this. So it is a huge problem. I mean, it seems like every day that we are hearing about some organization that got their computers hacked into and social security numbers are at risk or credit card numbers. So first of all, do you know why this is such a big problem?
Well, it has to do with the fact that we live in such a digital age, and so there's so much information about us out there.
Okay.
And so when people hack into, Target, they can get our names, they can get our potentially our social security numbers, our addresses, and that personal identifiable information is kind of key to who we are in a digital world.
So if I had my identity stolen, whether it could be just as simple as my credit card number, I suppose, and they could just make a bunch of charges on it, all the way up to getting my social security number, and now they're opening bank accounts or, charge cards in my name.
Right.
If we find out that has happened and I come to you, how are you going to help me solve all of that?
Well, the first thing is accountants kind of focus on the tax side of things, so we can give you advice as far as going to credit bureaus and notifying them that your identity was stolen. But predominantly we help in the realm of taxes so that we can help you notify the IRS that your identity was stolen, because one of the big issues is fraudulent tax returns. And so the IRS has a system in place where if you have your identity stolen, you can notify the IRS. They'll issue an identity protection PIN, which will enable you to be the only person that can file your tax return.
Really? So people they have my social security number, they make up a fake tax return so that they get a lot of money back, and they send it into the IRS. Do those ever get flagged beforehand? Or, I would think if you're going to get a sizable tax return, that alone would flag it so that the IRS goes, oh, we better look at this first.
They're trying to do better about flagging them, certainly. But because there's so much pressure to the IRS to release refunds quickly, people want their refunds in 1 week, 2 weeks. It just doesn't give them enough time to flag every return. And so they've established this program of identity protection so that if you've had your identity stolen, you can notify them, and then they will only accept a return that has this particular PIN code on it.
But doesn't a lot of times you don't realize somebody has filed a tax return in your name until you file yours and the IRS says, oh, we already gave you your return, sorry.
Yes, and I have a number of clients over the last several years that have gotten that letter from the IRS indicating that a duplicate return was filed, or an error rejection when we've tried to e-file, and they've gotten notification that a return has already been filed in your name and social security number.
Okay, so then what's the first step? So I filed my return, I got this letter and went, oh God, I gotta call Mike, help me. Mike, I got this letter. Now what's the first step that we do?
Right, so the first step we do is we file a form with the IRS that notifies them that you've had an identity theft issue. Then they will allow you to file your tax return for the current year, and then they kind of put the fraudulent return, they flag it, and then they do what they can to try to track down whoever got that refund and get it back if possible. But as far as you're concerned, you would file a paper return that initial year, and then they would put you in the system, and every January they would issue an identity protection PIN in the form of a letter from the IRS, and then you would use that identity protection PIN to identify the correct return with the IRS.
So if somebody already has my money, when am I going to get my real money?
Well, the good news is that if a fraudulent return is filed, the IRS will still issue your refund to you.
Okay.
But you have to file a police report and do some other things in order to substantiate to the IRS that it really was an identity.
So how long will
theft.
that take? Like, I mean, are we talking like 2 years from now I'll get the return that I've...
Typically, my clients have experienced about a 6-month delay in getting their refund.
So hopefully within the same year,
Yeah.
you get, unless you filed a bunch of like delays on filing or something,
Right,
and then you finally found out. Oops, too late. Okay. Anything else you want to let people know that they can do to help protect their identity at all, or you just, when you're filing taxes, but if you don't have that PIN number from the IRS, what else can we do?
Well, so one of the things that I recommend to all of my clients is they just are very careful with personal identifiable information. So we're talking about, names, addresses, dates of birth, and social security numbers. If somebody has those 4 key pieces of information, they can file a fraudulent return.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we use and that a lot of firms use is a secure portal for transmitting information back and forth. You shouldn't ever submit your W-2 to your employer just as an attachment to an email, because it has those identifiable pieces of information on it. So you should, you should use a more secure form of transmitting your documentation to your tax preparer.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mike Criddle. You are with Eide Bailey. So we'll come to you if somebody stole my identity or somebody else's. And for anybody else, please go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. And you're going to get the most out of your income tax preparation when you hire a CPA. That's uacpa.org. And listen to KSL News Radio to find out the best tax tips from the Utah Association of Certified Public Accountants.
Thanks for being a Money Making Sense listener. Follow your common sense onto social media. Money Making Sense on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.